Hey everyone, thanks again for stopping by. If you're new to the channel, my name is Riley and I used to be a Jehovah's Witness. And what an interesting 3 weeks it has been in JW land. Roughly 3 weeks ago, on the 8th of October, the Jehovah's Witnesses had their annual general meeting. And some huge and truly historic announcements were made. Firstly, it was announced that with effect from the 1st of November, publishers would no longer have to report their ministry time. And some new light was announced regarding the sequence of events running up to Armageddon, involving who would possibly be saved and when. Now, I've already made a video about the end of the requirement for publishers to report their ministry time. If you haven't already seen that video, I'll leave a link to it right up there. But what I'd really like to speak about today is how these announcements are affecting those of us in the ExJW community. Now, since the AGM, there have been many posts on social media, particularly on the ExJW subreddit, by former Jehovah's Witnesses who are expressing a lot of fear and anxiety about what these announcements mean. There have even been some posts by people expressing a desire to return to the organization because they fear that these changes indicate that the Jehovah's Witnesses have been right about their Doomsday prediction, and this is just a prelude to the Great Tribulation and ultimately the War of Armageddon. And the current conflict in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas only serves to make matters worse. Now, right off the bat, I want to say that this is not a judgment video. I have no judgment whatsoever for anybody expressing these concerns. On the contrary, I really and truly understand where these feelings are coming from. Here in the UK, as it is in most places in the world at the moment, we're experiencing a cost of living crisis. And the start of this crisis coincided with the start of the war between Russia and Ukraine. And when that war broke out, I had very similar feelings to what a lot of ExJWs are feeling right now. In fact, the whole situation made me feel so anxious that I actually had an anxiety attack. So when I say I understand, that isn't just a meaningless platitude, I genuinely do. Now, there are a few things that helped me to get over those feelings of anxiety, and that is what I want to speak to you about today. Now, the first of those things is research. And when I say research, I'm not talking about the kind of research that many of us did when we were first waking up to the truth about the truth. The kind of research that I'm specifically speaking about now is the research that helps you understand that the kind of things we're seeing in the world today have always existed. It is nothing new. According to JW doctrine, a sign of the end times is world conditions increasingly getting worse and worse. Specifically things like poverty, crime, war, famine, and disease. But when you examine the evidence about these things, they're not actually getting worse, they're getting better. Which means that JW theology on this matter is fundamentally untrue. Now, while all of those things still do happen to an unacceptable level, they actually get worse the further back in history you go. A while back, I read an excellent book by author Steven Pinker. It's called The Better Angels of Our Nature, Why Violence Has Declined. This book is an excellent read, and it goes into great detail explaining how things like crime, violence, and war are actually worse in the past than they are right now. And I would highly recommend it to anyone who has any kind of anxiety about the state of the world as it is today. Now, even though these things are actually getting better, it's very easy to think that they are getting worse when you take into account the kind of media coverage and attention that they get. Not only are media reports about these things more accessible, they're actually more vivid in their imagery. Now, all of these factors can actually play tricks on our minds and make us think that these terrible occurrences are actually more common than they are. As human beings, it's natural for us to take our own lived experience and project that out to the wider world and delude ourselves into thinking that it's representative of the larger picture when actually it's not. So, if world conditions aren't actually worsening, then it means that the JWs are wrong, and it really is as simple as that. Another thing that helps me is realizing that no other religion in the entire world has made as many failed doomsday predictions as the Jehovah's Witness religion. If there is one defining characteristic that sets the Jehovah's Witnesses apart from all others, it would be how many times they've predicted the end of the world and gotten it wrong. And the leaders of this religion are supposed to be the sole channel of communication between Jehovah God and humans, chosen by Jesus Christ himself. And if they really were God's chosen spokesman, they would not have gotten it wrong even one single time, let alone all the times that they actually have. And since they have gotten it wrong so many times, why would they be right now? Shortly after the Russia-Ukraine war broke out, my friend Jake from the Alt Worldly channel made an excellent video that really helped me at the time. Jake did an excellent job in that video. He went into great detail about JW doctrine when it relates to certain end-time prophecies. It was an excellent demonstration of just how flawed their theology really is. I highly recommend that video, and I'm absolutely certain that it would help a lot of you who are experiencing any kind of doomsday anxiety. One last thing that really helped me, and I know I'm going to sound like a broken record because I speak about this all the time, and that is therapy. I cannot overstate just how vital therapy is to anyone coming out of a high control religion. And anxiety about the supposed end of the world is just one reason why therapy is so important. If you're experiencing any of the feelings that I've spoken about in this video, please seek help, preferably from someone who's experienced in religious trauma. Now, I know that professional therapy isn't accessible to everyone, and if that is your situation, then please speak to someone else instead. Speak to your friends, speak to your non-JW family. I speak from experience when I say this. Getting an outsider's perspective on these things is really, really helpful. In fact, I'd go so far as to say it is one of the quickest and easiest ways to see just how ridiculous JW doctrine is. When I was just waking up, there were certain aspects of JW doctrine and theology that I would discuss with my wife, Marsha. And I kid you not, all she had to say was, "Well, that's dumb." And as soon as she said it, I would immediately see just how dumb it was, despite the fact that these were things that I had believed for decades. So please, speak to someone. I'm certain that it will help. And the reason I'm so certain is because I read it in the Bible. Okay, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please take care of yourselves. And if you haven't already done so, please click the like button so that as many people as possible get to see this video. And also, please subscribe to the channel with notifications so that you're alerted each time I post new content. Please proceed to the JEXit in an orderly fashion, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching to the very end of the video. If you haven't already done so, please like, leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. If you like my work and want to help me continue doing it, please support me on Patreon at patreon.com/JEXit_2020. And with that, I'd like to sincerely thank these very special patrons who make these videos possible. First, shenanigans. chapter 3 and verse 16. Happy is the man who speaks of his anxieties with his neighbor, for his neighbor will speak consolingly to his depressed soul with words seasoned with salt, and he will grease his head with oil, and it will go well with him all his days, for time indefinite, even to times indefinite. I am Jehovah.